Good morning, everybody. I think we're live. Get my microphone straight here. There we are. Very good. Got my blue notepad here, and we should be ready to go here in just a minute. Very good. Yes, thank you for the audio and visual, as always. I've got my... Someone was asking this the other day. I think I was either last week or yesterday. It's like, what is this cup you always drink? I use these Nespresso. This is not meant to be an advertisement, by the way, right? This is just, I just have this Nespresso machine, so we drink these like Nespresso coffee things, like little capsules. That's what's going on here. 2 a day. 2 per day. Okay, well, listen, let's get started. Again, happy Tuesday. Thanks for being back here, folks. This is Serge Berger here from thestudytrader.com. And we are looking at a Tuesday. So if you were here yesterday, you probably heard me talk about the big earnings week we have this week, right? So this is really only kind of important from sort of a swing trading perspective, if you want to react to it. From sort of an investment perspective, this is a good research time. So we have a lot of earnings this week, and it's really just starting basically today. In fact, I should probably move this up to today. Today's the 27th, right? So we've got just a lot of earnings. The reason I bring it up is because, and we told our members this late last week already, it's when you have this many earnings coming up in 1 week, things can get very choppy, or at least sort of immediate term, somewhat unpredictable from a single stock perspective. These are not macro issues, they're single stock issues or specific to a sector or group. For example, this morning we had numbers from General Motors. I'll give you some of these things. So, for example, if I look at the pre-market movers this morning, you can see pre-market movers here. We've got, let's see, we've got, General Motors. We have Boeing had their number. So GM is up about 4% this morning. Boeing is down. Sorry. The point is there's a lot of stuff happening. Intel is actually up a couple percent. I'm not quite sure if that seems to be a little bit algorithmically driven. I didn't see a specific headline this morning from Intel. It's probably just because the stock sold off yesterday and machines don't know what to do other than buy. So until they learn how to sell, and they will. So anyway, that's what's going on this morning. I just thought I'd give you that. Now, what I'd like to do this morning, I'd like to really focus on two things. So that's a little bit of the earnings perspective. First of all, if you guys have stocks you want to look at or something, or tickers, I'm happy to look at some. So we could do like an early or maybe like a Ticker Thursday thing quickly. But I do want to quickly point out what's going on in Asia. This is particularly on the Hang Seng Index. So let me show this to you. So this here is the Hang Seng Index. And I think, we live in the world where people like to, call and root for breakouts. I think a lot of people don't even really quite know what that actually means, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that this is kind of what we're looking at. And if I look at the Hang Seng Index, so the HSI, you can see that this is probably one of those things that has the potential to go higher, just from a charting perspective. We'll keep it really simple here. There's a lot of fundamental stuff and a lot of stimulus and stuff that I think gives us reason to believe that the stuff to go higher. If I want to add a little bit more leverage, and you guys have heard me talk about K-Web for a long time, that's the internet stuff in China. It's technically not as easy to look at, or as easy to kind of, fall in love with, but it's interesting. You can look at something like Alibaba, which we talked about here, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I think with Alibaba, even even people with like little crayons and drawing tools can probably come to the conclusion that this is something interesting. I think when you look at the HSI, the Hang Seng, it's a bit more complex. You need to actually have a process. But the point is, kind of, if you want to get a basic framework, I think you can do it, right, by drawing some lines. It's just, it doesn't give you much, it gives you zero perspective, but it gives you, at least some pretense of hope that there might be something to do that makes sense. Of course, then you have to be able to risk manage it, which is really kind of the trickier part. So Hang Seng or Alibaba, like that kind of stuff to me looks really interesting. The reason it's interesting is because money is flowing pretty much everywhere out of Max 7. So at the margin, right? This is the great rotation trade that we're going to talk about on Friday in our state of the market. So if you haven't had a chance, actually you won't have a chance yet because we haven't released the sign-up page yet, but we're doing a big state of the market address this Friday. I believe it's at noon Eastern, so 9 o'clock Pacific. And I'll be talking about the great rotation, specifically what that means and the opportunities that we see coming out of that. But let me just quickly show you, for example, if I were to take the Hang Seng Index and divide it by the NASDAQ 100, you get a chart that looks like this. I'm going to make this a simple chart. I try to give people perspective, and I'm going to make this a weekly chart, meaning like, something that goes back more than just a few weeks. And so, this doesn't really tell us much because we've continued to make basically lower lows, but we are at a point where we now for the first time may have a series of higher lows, which really I'm not sure we've seen higher lows for a long time. Right, so even if you go back, like there was really barely any higher lows that sustained for more than a few weeks, and we now have it. So, it's basically emerging markets, China. I mean, again, we'll talk about this in the state of the market on Friday, but there's so many things here that are giving us a lot of relative strength versus the NASDAQ 100 because the money is coming out of the NASDAQ 100. As much as people don't want to hear that, we've been talking about it since April of last year. So what is that, a year and a whatever? Yeah, no, April of last year. No, about April of last year. So anyway, so that's what's going on. And again, we'll talk about this much more. Commodities, if I were to give you one thing that I think everyone should have a very, very close look at, it's commodities. This is the Bloomberg Commodity Index, BCOM. I've been talking about it for months. People don't seem to care, but at some point they will, and they'll realize that commodities have rallied 100% and their portfolio's done nothing. So these are the kind of things that we like to look at because these are the big macro tails, where money is moving to. So anyway, so that's what's going on. Speaking of this kind of stuff, right, there's some major rotations that are taking place. We're actually going to talk about it. When are we doing this thing? So the state of the market is on Friday, but then we're talking about a specific opportunity that's sort of the next phase in the AI play, and that webinar or that presentation, it's our weekly education series. That one takes place soon, today. I should be aware of that, right? Because we'll be there live. So that's going to take place today. Today is Tuesday, the 27th at 11 o'clock Eastern. So 10 at 8, 8 o'clock Pacific in the morning. This morning. So if you want to join and learn about the next move that we think is coming in AI, and it's not AI itself, actually, it's something that actually makes AI happen because you can't have AI. I'll give you guys a quick story. I had the great pleasure to meet with someone who is probably more well-versed in AI than anyone I've ever met by like tenfold. And I met this person on Saturday. Spent quite a bit of time with this person on Saturday. And this person is very well-versed with the mathematics of AI. And I've been talking to a bunch of people about the mathematics behind AI now for probably a couple of years now, but there's a lot of stuff that's been sort of coming together for me just over the past 72 hours on this, and I think once people understand how that all works, then understanding the computational power needed and why the next wave of what's making AI actually going to come to fruition is so important. Again, we'll talk about this here in just a couple of hours here today at 11 o'clock Eastern. John's asking, do you think there is a correlation between the strength of consumer staples and weakness in financials? I'm not quite sure. I know it's actually interesting. I haven't thought about that, but I understand what you talk about, the divergence. I don't think there is necessarily. I think that might be a bit of a stretch there, but who knows? Maybe we'll find out that there is, and then I'll let you know. The other thing I want to quickly talk about is I want to reiterate CSX. So this is we talked about the stock yesterday. This is CSX, of course, is a railroad company. We talked about it. You guys remember I was talking about it yesterday morning? The stock's now up another 2.3% actually yesterday since we mentioned that. So here's the chart on CSX. We think the stock can ultimately go a lot higher. I'll give you quickly sort of where this stock is in the bigger picture. Let me just quickly give you the trend and the momentum on the stock. So here's the trend. So we use our trend following model, and we're going to meet with you guys that are Market Rover members in just a few minutes. Actually, here is momentum trend. The trend following models that we have gave us a buy signal from a trend following perspective in September of this past year, and CSX continues to do very, very well. And we think it could start breaking out. Again, not a recommendation. Please do your own research. But, from our perspective, it's a pretty strong case. They've got earnings coming up as well. We actually now, because of the move we just had, we actually now also have a momentum buy signal. So CSX has a free profit target coming up here at $38.10. We've got a trailing stop in place around 36.20. So that's just a little bit of perspective there. The other thing I want to tell you, and I'm going to quickly create this chart for you guys in real time. The underlying thing that I think a lot of people still just do not want to appreciate for whatever the reason is just what the dollar is doing. It always baffles me that people don't care what the dollar is doing. I understand, if dollar is your income and your currency, you may not matter because you don't realize it, but you are losing your purchasing power, so everyone should care. So this is the inverse of the commodities. So commodities here are the blue line, right? That very bullish chart I showed you before. The inverse of that's the dollar index, right? So the dollar index, in fact, let me see if I can... So the dollar index is basically going down. I'll create it a bit separately for you so you can see. We'll put it into a new pane. So the dollar index is the chart at the bottom. So you can see it's the inverse of the commodities index, right? If the commodities index is breaking higher, which we think it is, then the dollar index, which is down here, is just essentially breaking down, right? It's not a linear thing. There's ups and downs, but again, I think people need to understand this correlation rather than just chart chasing NVIDIA because everyone's long NVIDIA 10 times in their portfolio. I think this is probably very important. So anyway, that's about all I had this morning. If you guys have any questions, by all means, let us know. We can cover it tomorrow. If you are a Market Rover Inner Circle member, we'll see you guys in just a few minutes, in about 5 minutes. We have one specific stock we're going to talk about here in just 5 minutes over for Market Rover members. It's actually a tech stock, believe it or not, but one that's fallen out of favor. And it was a long-time favorite for a long time. Hasn't been for a long time. It was for a long time, but hasn't been for a long time, if you will. And we'll talk about that stock for Market Rover members in a few minutes. You guys know where to go to the GoToWebinar link there. The rest of you guys, will see you back here tomorrow. And if you want to join us for the State of the Market address, that's coming up on Friday. And of course, our weekly strategy session. This week, we're going to focus on the next opportunity in the AI trade. And just as an FYI, unless this happens, AI will not happen. Nowhere near to the capacity that it has. So we think this is an unbelievably good opportunity. So anyway, thank you, folks. Have a great trading day, and we'll see you soon. Oh, give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel. It really